I've got to be more official and introduce Aisling Fitzgibbon, who really has made a huge difference. There have been people fighting fluoridation in Ireland for years. We lost Robert Pocock, who passed away very young in his 50s. He fought it for years. We had Don Macaulay, a dentist who formed Irish dentist opposed to fluoridation. He got about 40 dentists involved. And so the campaign has waxed and waned, but all of a sudden there's been this injection of young blood, and very, very colorful indeed. Aisling Fitzgibbon, she's getting a lot of attention from the Irish media, and it's exciting young people. And I hope you don't mind me saying this, even more exciting than Aisling, I believe, is her mother, who is behind both Aisling and getting the kids. What are the kids called?
One of the groups is the Little Miss Fluoride Fighters.
Yeah, the Little Miss Fluoride Fighters. Oh, they're lovely. So, very exciting. So now, straight from Las Vegas in Dublin, Ireland, Aisling Fitzgibbon.
Thank you. I won't bother introducing myself now after that great introduction by Paul. So welcome everyone. My name's Aisling, but my name has now become the Girl Against Fluoride, and most people are calling me that as opposed to my actual name. So I started off the whole campaign. The Girl Against Fluoride was born, but I will go through that in the presentation, and you'll kind of see the kind of story unfolding. And you'll wonder why I'm dressed in this costume, which is a bit unusual, like not the typical activist attire. But I will explain why I have been drawn to do these type of activities. So when I first heard about fluoride in the water, you have this kind of, really, you kind of go through a process in your mind. And I've gone so deep into the whole issue, as most people have here, that I kind of forget what it's like sometimes to talk to people who don't know anything about it. So I'm in the process now of really evolving the campaign to reach the average person that really will affect change, because I'll tell the story, but I've seen what it's like, and Paul knows what it's like in Ireland, how you're just met with absolute, it's ridiculous. It's like something you would never imagine. So you hear fluorides in the water, and it's not very good. Some studies are linking it to cancer, lowering IQ, arthritis, hip fractures, thyroid dysfunction, calcifying the pineal gland. Oh, as well, not only that, everyone, but it's actually coming from industrial waste chemicals, and your government knows this. Now, just for a moment, I just want to ask you how, if you knew nothing about fluoride, how this would make you feel, this information. Yeah. What I've learned is that to the general public that fluoride is a toxic topic, because I think of the negative connotations associated with it, which have been built up from the very early years, that opposing it, you really are regarded as almost like a heretic, that you're crazy and it's absolutely delusional. I'm sure we're all met with that. Not only from just the general public, but for me, my family, we really, we had such resistance with our family. They were calling, my mom and I, we were first getting into it, and we were on the internet for hours upon hours, as we all do, learning. And then we come back and we come into the house, and all we wanted to talk about was fluoride. How are you? Did you hear about the fluoride? We literally didn't want to have any other conversation other than, did you know about the fluoride in the water? And they were like, you've gone mad. You've actually gone mad. Yeah, and my mom's sisters called us the fluoride freaks. That was our nickname for a while. But it did do a kind of U-turn, because this same sister, my mom's sister Denise, she was calling us fluoride freaks, because I was saying, I'm so upset, like, I've got to do something, blah, blah, blah. And eventually, like 2 years later, she ends up posing in our naked calendar. Yeah, and she was selling it where we're from in County Kerry. She was selling it to everyone. She was like, did you hear about the fluoride? She's reading Hot Press, and so it's like she was there because that's the initial reaction. So we have to always remember that's kind of, you know, you're saying it to people, but there's a resistance always in the back of their mind. They're not just open to it. So we have to always be very mindful of that. And again, people will say to me, especially when we're doing protests and things on the streets, like, how do you mean toxic chemicals? Like, I was saying it to my friend, and I was saying, tell your other friends that are having babies and everything. And one of his friends commented, and she said, and I thought this was quite important to know people's perspective. You know, there's heavy metals in the water, my friend was saying to his friend. And she said, how do you mean? Like AC/DC? Like, literally, that was her reaction. That was seriously. And this girl has been to university, and, you know, you say, what? And I was like, Jesus, really, people don't really have a comprehension. You know, heavy metals, is that like a rock band? Is that what you're talking about? And again, so this is an average person, and these are the things that we're coming up against. And again, obviously, people have a belief that the government is there to protect them, and when you're saying otherwise, it's very hard for them to make that leap in their mind. So again, that's why we're kind of coming up against walls the whole time of resistance. Like, I recently met a guy, he was just after training in toxicology, and he comes up and we've got like, stop poisoning our water, and he's like, no, it's not poison. Don't you understand, you know, all the different, he was just like bamboozling me, and I was like, okay. You know, so a lot of people have that in their mind. They're like, but I'm drinking it, I'm fine, I feel perfect, I'm intelligent, I don't have these things. So then when you're kind of mentioning side effects, they tend to just, the eyes glaze over. How do I change? Yeah. So what I've really been learning through the campaign is that it's not just a matter of passing on a message, not just a matter of contacting your local council or your government to lobby them to get this this practice, is that people are resistant because, and I'm just referring to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if anyone's studied psychology, these are like our basic needs at the very bottom. If you can read that, physiological needs: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, and sex. And these are our basic needs. And I think the whole fluoride issue really threatens people's safety, which is why their minds tend to shut down. They feel like you're, you know, something poisonous in your water supply. It makes them feel very uncomfortable. And I think because of that element to it, that people are kind of, even though what you're saying is very logical and plausible, you're saying about the dose and everything, and all these things make sense, but there's like a block in people's minds on a psychological level, because you're threatening their safety. And when you do that, we have this reaction called denial. And you know, this doesn't apply just to fluoride, many other things, but it's a critical part of our human coping mechanism. And without this mechanism in our minds, we would all wake up terrified and imagining all the ways in which we could die. And I'm obviously, you know, when you learn about fluoride, you get really paranoid. And I've gone through that kind of, you know, you can't go anywhere, you're not safe, it's toxic, you can't drink anywhere, you can't go to restaurants. So people are blocking this out when they're meeting it first. So it's like, I'm seeing that just from my family, but even from like counsellors that I've met throughout the campaign. You know, they'd be saying, but like, you know, I've been giving this to my babies and they're fine, and I've been feeding them formula milk, and there's part of them then, there's guilt and everything mixed up in that. So they kind of just want to just shut it down, and they want to ignore you as well. So they block it out, and we block these things out by just focusing on our day-to-day stresses. Now this is coming from actually Dan Brown's new book, Inferno, and it was saying within the book it was just an issue about denial, and it said a web tracking study at an Ivy League university showed that even highly intellectual users displayed an instinctual tendency to denial. After clicking, the students clicking on images of depressing melting ice caps, they quickly exited in favor of something trivial that purged their minds of fear. And the most popular things were silly cat videos, celebrity gossip, and sports. So it's kind of like, you have to understand that when we're dealing with this issue. It's like, oh, you know, you're kind of bamboozling people with, and it makes them feel so frightened that they almost want to just go into like a total escapism. And that's what we see, you know, where we avoid negativity by doing these things. So the Girl Against Fluoride takes her philosophy from a very wise woman called Mary Poppins, who once said that in every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. And any task you undertake becomes a piece of cake, a lark, a spree. It's very clear to see that a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down in the most delightful way. And what I'm taking from that is that in order for people to take on board the issue, I have sugar-coated it and made it safe and fun. And because of that, it's almost like a character, and people can detach then emotionally. And when they do that, they're able to be more receptive. And they can almost, it's like a story, and they can, because we're so used to movies and television programs and following stories than just plain facts. If you tell it through a story, I find people are much more, it's not threatening, and that's probably the main thing. So I'm from Ireland in County Kerry, and we are definitely the odd ones out in Europe. But even despite this fact, people are still resistant to the whole message. So it's like, on a government level, you'll see the rest of Europe, they're not doing this practice. But like literally, that seems to not sink in on many levels. There's only, like, we have a senator in the government, and she completely supports it because she's very health conscious herself. But she said the people that are, she's speaking to the other public representatives, and she's saying they're not taking it on board because they themselves don't feel it affects them. And that's what I'm getting from a lot of people as well. I don't feel this affects me, this issue. So, we have to come up with things. And my mom and I, we spend a lot of time driving around Ireland, giving talks, educating ourselves from Fluoride Action Network, and delivering the information, and coming into halls like this. Now, less numbers. Sometimes we have arrived into a tent with nobody, 0, and we were after traveling like the whole day. So this has happened, and we're like, but why does nobody want to know about fluoride? So my mom and I were just like, oh my God, this is going nowhere. We looked at Dan Macaulay, we saw that all these other people were doing it. We're like, they all fizzled out, what can we do? Literally, our family are resisting it, so if they are resisting it, they're just like an example of what the average person is. So we decided we're gonna have to take drastic measures, and 2 years ago, the Girl Against Fluoride was born in Kerry Airport. I got a T-shirt printed up, no to fluoride, and the knickers, get the F out. Fluoride is a poison. Now this was like desperate times called for desperate measures. My mom was like, you're just going to have to take your clothes off. That's the only way we can think of at this point. We've exhausted all other avenues. We've gone everywhere. We've literally hounded everyone. We've hounded councils, governments, everyone. So I was posting science, 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 science on Facebook. Now I was just on a Facebook page. And you get like one like, probably me and my friend who were interested in fluoride. We like each other's things. Like, great, we found that, woo. And then all of a sudden I put this picture up, and like everyone was flooding in, oh my God, and I was like, oh, Jesus, like this is actually working. This is amazing. Now I don't always go around stripping, but that definitely propelled it out, and it got it out there, and actually papers were covering it because it was kind of an outrageous stunt. But then obviously behind the scenes, people were like, oh, then I looked into it and I saw that's why you were doing it. So it's kind of like when you're marketing something, you can't just be like, blah, 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 loads of information. People just go, oh God. You just need something that captures them, hooks them in, and then you can actually engage. Now, you don't have to do stripping, obviously. Not everyone has to be stripping off, or I don't really want to be doing it anymore. But, it has to be marketing to get people in, because the message itself does not, it turns people off. The message turns people off. So you have to come up with creative, outside-the-box ways to, bring them in so you can tell them what's going on. So then that was outside the government building in Dublin. Stripped of our rights. I had a few people join me on the day. Stopped drugging us with fluoride. And that was actually in November. So it was a little bit cold. But actually, madness actually heats you up. Do you know that? Do you know, like when you're really mad? But I'm not mad, but when madness is in, like when you're mad, I have to do something. So that was also outside. There was just a funny picture with the Irish guard. But they were very nice. They didn't say anything. And then this is just a selection of pictures. The Rose of Fluoride Free. That's like kind of beauty pageant in where I'm from, Tralee in County Kerry. So I dressed up and impersonated a rose for the weekend and went around. I was even asked, why should I be going on stage? And I was like, people actually were like, congratulations, the Rose of Florida. I was like, fluoride free. But then they did, and we were giving them out leaflets. The rose of fluoride just shows how, you know, if you're dressed, it's just perception. But that was really fun. And again, we learned that when you're kind of, it's like it disarms people when you're doing things like this. It's not like if you're dressed normally, like my mum said, if we're dressed in costumes, like my mum has dressed as the Pink Panther, she was like, you can chat away to people, dressed as the Pink Panther with a big pink face. You know, people like it. We have kids hanging off us and they're like, oh. But if you're dressed normally, they're like, get away from me, don't want to talk to you. Yeah, so interesting. This was at like a kind of agri show, like everyone in Ireland goes to it, all the farmers. So I was there dressed in a ball dress going around, pretty random, as you do. And this is just a little poster that we made, just an idea of, you know, creating a very positive image as well, and not making it threatening, and, you know, making it that you're fluoride free as opposed to anti-fluoride, because like people are like anti, you know, just is a different energy to it. And as you were mentioning, Paul, my mom is a school teacher, and she has been running the campaign. I suppose we actually started with the school. She's in a secondary school in Tralee, and they're like a transition year, so they don't do like exams, so they do projects and things that year. So she's been running it now for 3 years, and they go in a competition to Dublin, and it's been raising awareness to the point that the principal in the school is fully behind it. They got reverse osmosis filters into the school. Yeah. And I'll just show, like, the kids actually are like, fluoride is now officially a subject in the school. Are we doing fluoride next year? My mum was like, yeah. So she actually is like the fluoride teacher. She has her fluoride stickers in the car, and the whole community is aware because it's gone into local press and things like that. And luckily she's in a progressive school. You know, she wasn't met with a little bit of resistance at the start, but eventually that filtered away.
Explain the blue glove.
Oh yeah, so the blue glove, it was like no to fluoride. You can't really, the images aren't really that clear, but it's like, has a get the F out on the pan. And then my mom, they, last year they made, oh sorry, this is the year before, they made a puppet show. And they told the story through the puppet show, and we even had Declan Waugh, who's the environmental scientist from Cork, who's been doing the research. He was a character in it. And it was really like anti-government, but like because it was in a puppet show, like all the teachers were like, isn't that lovely? Oh yeah, isn't that great? Yeah. And then they got funding from like O2, and they went around in a bus around the country to primary schools and secondary schools, and then they had everyone put a blue glove on at the end, and they all shouted, get the F out. So that was really positive. But again, it was like we learned that you can get away with things through the puppet show and the story, and it's not threatening. You know, it's like Shakespeare. They were able to tell things through art, whereas you couldn't just stand up and say it to people. So you have to kind of think always of how you're impacting on people's psychology. Here is just a picture, just to give you a selection of things that's happened in the campaign. We were delivering with Hot Press magazine, which is like Ireland's answer to Rolling Stones. It's a music, political magazine. And we were delivering in questions into the Department of Health because they weren't answering questions. And we just happened, this was the Minister for Health in charge of the fluoride policy, and he was in a coffee shop, so we just waited outside and questioned him. So we have that footage that will eventually be put into a documentary. But, you know, and we were just basically saying, do you think it's ethical with the mass medication thing? But again, you're being met with the same answer. But it was an interesting moment, and it felt very kind of surreal actually meeting him. I say he was like, these people are stalking me. And then a few months later, I was giving a talk in some county, and I was staying in a B&B, and himself and his wife were staying in the exact same B&B, and we met in the morning. It was like, oh my, I say he was like, she's definitely a stalker now at this stage. And this is just a picture. I was at this event. It was Jeremy Irons, he's that famous actor. So I just did a funny poster online. It looks like I'm being interviewed, but I wasn't, obviously. They were obviously wanting to interview him, but I look like I'm kind of taking over the show. But yeah, trying to just I did speak to him about the fluoride issue, but I think he did mention it on some American TV, but he didn't get back to us. So we have a few Irish musicians. You probably aren't aware of their names. They're very famous over our side of the pond. Christy Moore is one of them. This guy, Paddy Casey, and Mundy. Mundy, he was saying that he played an anti-fluoride concert 19 years ago as a fundraiser, yeah. And he was like, He said, oh, I thought that the fundraiser would have done it. I was like, oh, if you only knew what's involved in this. And then there's a famous food critic in Ireland who came out against it, and his face now would be like all over all the restaurants all over Dublin and Ireland, because he like critiques different restaurants, and he has a show every Thursday on like a national news talk, national radio show, and he's very against fluoride. But he said to me, he's like, I just don't have the energy to, you know, because it's so much to trying to change this. So Hot Press magazine, they have been running a huge investigation, and you can find their articles. You can find them for free online on hotpress.com if you just search fluoride. That was a huge breakthrough for us in Ireland because, as you know, it's very hard to get media coverage. But the journalist, Adrian Murphy, is a very radical person, and so is the editor of the magazine. The editor, Niall, actually, his own father was involved in the campaign in the 60s, so he knew of the issue anyway. So, you know, we have gotten out into a lot of the papers, but really the Hot Press magazine has gone really in depth. So if anyone's interested in the history point of view, which kind of links into America, because in Ireland there was a court case taken in 1963, and you know, had like individuals like George Walbott, and they had Harold Hodge, all different experts flown in. And so all of that kind of covers that, because it was a Minister for Justice in Ireland. He was the solicitor who took the case. But they will be continuing with the Hot Press investigation as well. So that has really got massive traction and lots of followers because of that. So that's just one of the articles with myself. And that's just a picture from the naked calendar that we did of this year. And we had, she's a Brazilian model posing with fluoride-free toothpaste. And that really was a massive thing to kind of link in, because the amount of people that we had take part in it, like we had councillors from Cork, county councillors. There was like a mayor of Kerry, or mayor of Cork, sorry. She was in the calendar as well. And because of that, then it got out onto national television, and more people were speaking about it in a way that you'd never get them talking about it. So I'm going to mention briefly about marketing, and I think that's really important for all of us to kind of come up with ways in which that we can market this, because as you were saying yesterday, the science is there. It's clear to us and to anyone who actually reviews it that it should be stopped immediately. But we're here and the general public are over here, so we need to learn how to market that. And I was just looking at like things like McDonald's and how they kind of tap into the human psychology of people love positivity and like the Happy Meal, and it's I'm loving it and all this. You know, it really, even though people know it's not good for them, they kind of just like get caught up in the brand because it's just so powerful and positive, and people just, I don't know, it kind of convinces them that they should be eating this. And again, with like Coca-Cola, all different things that are just very, it's just using positivity and really snappy language as well, I think is like what we need to be looking at more. And, you know, you've obviously heard of the Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, we're not going to just like piggyback on that with the fluoride-free Ice Bucket Challenge, because, I don't know, people, they'd be like, oh, you're just not coming up with any creative ideas yourselves, but kind of coming up with things that are fun, because this Ice Bucket Challenge showed everyone really just how, you know, marketing is so important. It really just shows how when things are fun, that they catch on and they're not threatening, and if you can get celebrities, obviously, is very beneficial. So for me in the campaign, I really felt this year that it's time to evolve, because if I continue to do the same thing, I'm meeting the same circles, but it's like hit a ceiling. So in order to reach out, we've decided that we're going to create a comic book series with the Girl Against Fluoride, the GAF comic book, because the whole fluoride thing is really an abstract concept, and people's minds, unless they are receptive and want to listen to it, for the most part, they just have no idea. Like, I've spoken to children and they're saying, like, what's the chemical? What, you know, they find it hard to, they don't know really when you're saying it to them. But I said, because fluoride is abstract, you need to make them into, like I've made the Girl Against Fluoride into a character, so then obviously she has to have a villain. So we're toying with the name of a Freaky Flora as actually representing like fluoride in a person. She'd be like the PR person for fluoride, and she's basically a con artist who's convinced all the governments in the world that fluoride's great. And her mission now is to get the rest of Europe fluoridated. But the thing is, so it's like you're making her more real, and then you can kind of tell the story through that. Because when I've gone around, people are like, "Are you the real Girl Against Fluoride?" Like, looking at me like, she's going to start flying any minute. Like, literally, people are like, they really get into the character. So I was like, and I've gotten this, like, messages. People are like, you know, this could be like a book. You know, this could be like, you know, it's like the story of it is what people are more attracted to than the actual fluoride itself. Obviously, they're learning through it, but it's actually the story that kind of brings them. It's like anything. It's like the Titanic. Who was interested in the Titanic sinking? We just wanted to know about Kate and Jack. You know, it was like the characters that we connect to that obviously can bring us through, and then you learn about the whole issue. But it's through a story, and that's how people learn best. So my nearly last slide. So the end to fluoride, in my view, a collective generational mind shift is needed around the issue. Because here we have fluoride has been here for so many years, and it's good for your teeth. And anyone who's opposing it, you know, it's junk science, it's you're meeting with this. But it's like we need to kind of move that from it's good for your teeth to fluoride is not good. We should all be getting it out of the water. And by making it a trendy topic, because it's like something that people don't want to go near. Like we have, you know, if you're approaching celebrities and stuff like that, it's, you know, they're thinking, is this good for my career? Am I being seen? You know, so all these things, it's like we have to make it more safe and away from it being a threatening subject, and that enough people then will demand fluoride-free water. So please support the Girl Against Fluoride campaign. If you can subscribe to our newsletter, that would be brilliant, so we can keep in contact on the website, thegirlagainstfluoride.com, and connect to us through social media. We have an illustrator in Dublin now who are working on the first draft of the comic series, so we'll be kind of testing that. And you know, I really feel there's a huge kind of potential in that, because you know, the young people, like we had young people into our house to show them the costume in our area, and I was just asking, and they said, "What's this about?" And we said, "Oh, the fluoride," and they're like, "It's a chemical to added to the water." And then we said, "Well, you know, Freaky Flora, she's trying to add these more to people's water," and they were like, "Oh, so she's poisoning the water." But like, we could talk to them through that. Whereas if I said, "Did you know there's poison in your water? Did you know there's poison in your water?" They're like, you know. But whereas if you're actually putting it through the characters, people, they were actually like, they could get into it. You know, they've seen the superhero, the kind of, the hero and the villain, and that is very real to them. So thank you for your attention.
Great. What a great start you've given. What a great start you've given to the meeting today.